Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, August 17th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-gyeon. Before we begin, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. The Taliban captured Afghanistan's capital Kabul on Sunday, 20 years after they were ousted from power. Fighters have seized the presidential palace with President Ashraf Ghani fleeing. South Korea reports more than 1,400 new COVID-19 cases Monday, inching down from last week, but this was largely due to fewer tests being held over the weekend. Authorities remain on alert as the effects of the three-day holiday will likely be evident in the coming days. And President Muhyiddin is meeting his counterpart from Kazakhstan at the Blue House. Seoul's top office says President Moon and President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev are expected to discuss a way to promote substantive bilateral cooperation and to boost cultural and human exchanges and strengthen partnerships. Our top story this morning: the Taliban has claimed victory in Afghanistan after taking over the capital Kabul, bringing an end to almost 20 years of a U.S.-led coalition's presence in the country. Having captured all other major cities, they strolled into the presidential palace unopposed. And within hours, there were chaotic scenes, and residents and foreign nationals have been trying to escape. For more, we have our Kim Sang-min on the line for us. Sang-min, give us the details.
Muhyiddin, deadly scenes at Kabul airport as Afghans are desperate to evacuate the country. People clambered to get on planes as it took off, climbing over each other. At least 5 people died at the airport on Monday, some apparently falling to their deaths. Afghan airspace has been closed since then, with commercial flights from Kabul being cancelled. Afghans are frightened that the country could further descend into chaos following the Taliban's takeover, especially fear of potential revenge attacks against those who work with the U.S. or the government. Many also believe that the Taliban will enforce harsh interpretation of Islamic law as they did 2 decades ago, which involves the suppression of women.
Well, Sang-min, how is the international community reacting to this shocking news?
U.S. President Joe Biden returned to the White House on Monday from Camp David and delivered remarks on the deteriorating conditions in Afghanistan. He said the situation is evolving more quickly than the U.S. government had anticipated. However, he insisted his decision to pull troops from the country was the correct one, and instead put the blame on Afghanistan's political leaders and armed forces for not taking action against the Taliban.
I stand squarely behind my decision. After 20 years, I've learned the hard way that there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces. That's why we're still there. We were clear-eyed about the risks. We planned for every contingency, but I always promised the American people that I will be straight with you.
The U.S. is set to complete its withdrawal of troops in 2 weeks, but for now, it will expand its security presence to around 6,000 to secure Kabul's airport and help with the evacuation of U.S. and allied personnel. The rest of the world's leaders are also stepping up to address the issue. The UN Secretary General has called for international unity during a briefing to an emergency session of the Security Council. Saying that the following days will be pivotal, he said now is the time to stand as one. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson also outlined his intention to hold a virtual meeting with G7 leaders to discuss the matter, emphasizing the humanitarian fallout from the Taliban takeover. Morgan?
Thank you for the update, Sang-min. Now, Afghanistan's ex-president Ashraf Ghani reportedly fled the country on Sunday with 4 cars and a helicopter stacked with cash. This according to the Russian embassy in Kabul, which added he was joined by his wife and some of his top aides. Ghani took to Facebook to claim he left for his personal own safety. While it's unclear where he is now, reports say he could be in Oman, Uzbekistan, or even be headed for the U.S. Most South Korean embassy staff that had been in Kabul, now under the control of the Taliban, have been safely evacuated thanks to the help of friendly countries. The embassy will stay closed until further notice. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
With the Taliban rapidly taking control of Kabul, the South Korean embassy in the city was temporarily closed on Sunday, and most of its officials evacuated to a third country with the help of friendly countries, which apparently included the U.S. Foreign Ministry officials in Seoul say the withdrawal was decided at an emergency meeting on Sunday with Foreign Minister Chung Eui-yong, during which the South Korean ambassador to Afghanistan, Choi Tae-ho, received a message from a friendly country urging them to evacuate. Although it's yet to be confirmed, it seems the ambassador got the message from the US and NATO. Staff at the South Korean embassy destroyed classified documents before rushing to the city's airport, escaping on a US helicopter. They were able to use the American military asset due to a bilateral memorandum of understanding signed earlier this year in case of emergency. Currently, 3 Korean embassy staffers, including the ambassador, remain in Afghanistan as they look to evacuate one South Korean national who has not yet been able to get out. Sources say the South Korean citizen was on board a plane to leave on Monday, but that plane was unable to take off due to a wave of desperate Afghans flocking to the runway. The Foreign Ministry officials added the temporary closure of the embassy does not mean South Korea is severing diplomatic ties with Afghanistan. They are reportedly discussing what Seoul's future relationship with the Taliban should be. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
In other news, the death toll continues to rise in Haiti following the weekend's deadly earthquake. According to the country's Civil Protection Agency, at least 1,400 have been killed and more than 5,700 wounded. A state of emergency has been declared following the 7.2 magnitude earthquake on Saturday. President Moon Jae-in sent a letter of condolences to Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry, hoping for swift recovery and restoration. He added the South Korean government would join international efforts to provide emergency aid. We now turn to the COVID-19 situation here in South Korea. And following a long weekend where citizens may have been on the move, health authorities are on alert. For more on this, we have our Kim Do-yeon at the News Center. Do-yeon, first, let's start with the daily infection situation in South Korea.
Morgan, South Korea reported 1,373 COVID-19 cases on Tuesday, of which all but 50 were local transmissions. While the number doesn't seem so high considering reduced testing over the long weekend, the number is a concern. As you mentioned, the holiday weekend usually means there's a lot more movement among citizens, so health authorities are on their toes in case an even bigger spike hits the country. And this came as cases are growing in the non-capital region, with 513 new infections today. The R0 number for the non-capital region stands at 1.16, slightly higher than the week before. On the vaccination front, South Korea is set to receive 1.1 million additional doses of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccines. They are the ones manufactured at SK Bioscience's factory in Andong, so they won't need to travel to Korea from overseas before being used. This also comes as authorities said anyone over 30 that wishes to receive AstraZeneca shots will be allowed to do so. Currently, due to rare cases of blood clots, AstraZeneca shots are being rolled out for only those over 50 years old. Also coming at 11 a.m. today, the authorities will update the public on their trip to the U.S. to deal with the backed up supplies of Moderna shots, so we'll have more on that in a later cast. After a month of summer vacation, students are back in their classrooms for the second semester as Tuesday marks a return to learning in many middle and high schools across the country. And even under the toughest level 4, social distancing for the Greater Seoul area and a number of other regions, schools are at least partially open, with students taking turns going to in-person classes. For example, middle schools are open at a 1/3 capacity, while high schools, with the exception of senior students, are kept at half capacity. For those areas under level 3, attendance limits have been expanded, allowing high schools to fully open. Starting September 6th, and once schools have managed a few weeks of virus prevention, more students will be able to go to school as high schools will be fully opened even under level 4, and schools for all age groups will be able to open to their full capacity under level 3. The second semester for elementary schools will start next week. Now turning to the rest of the world, struggling with a surge in COVID-19 cases, Malaysia is in political turmoil as its prime minister has quit, with no clear successor in place. The virus is also continuing to spread quickly across Japan and Iran. Kim Il-sung reports.
Malaysia's prime minister resigned Monday after conceding he had lost the majority support needed to govern the country.
In that audience, I have tendered my resignation letter as the Prime Minister and all of my fellow cabinet ministers in line with provisions in our constitution. This is because I have lost the majority support of the members of parliament.
This makes him the country's shortest ruling leader, serving less than 18 months in the post. His resignation comes on the back of mounting public anger over the government's poor handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, with over 1.4 million cumulative cases and 12,000 deaths. The country has the highest number of COVID-19 infections and deaths per 1 million in Southeast Asia. All this comes despite an intense 7-month-long state of emergency and a lockdown across the nation. In Northeast Asia, Japan is set to extend its current state of emergency, which is due to expire at the end of the month, through mid-September, with its COVID-19 surge showing no signs of abating. The number of new daily cases stood at over 14,800 on Monday, skyrocketing 17-fold compared to 8 weeks ago, when the country reported its lowest Monday tally in recent months. In light of the continued surge, the Tokyo Paralympic Games will also be held without spectators. However, organizers said local students will be able to watch some competitions in person as part of the school program. As Iran continues to grapple with the virus, its COVID-19 deaths hit a record high of 655 on Monday. With over 4 million accumulated cases, the Iranian government has imposed the toughest virus warning across the majority of the country. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in will be holding a summit with his counterpart from Kazakhstan at the Blue House shortly. Seoul's top office says President Moon and President Kasim-Jomart Tokayev are expected to discuss ways to promote substantive bilateral cooperation and to boost cultural and human exchanges and strengthen partnerships as they prepare to mark 30 years of diplomatic ties in 2022. Kazakhstan is Korea's largest trading partner and investment destination in Central Asia. Tokayev arrived in Seoul last night for a 2-day state visit, the first trip to South Korea by a head of state since the start of the pandemic. An official welcome ceremony will take place prior to the summit. South Korea has lodged a complaint with Japan for again claiming South Korea's easternmost islets of Dokdo as Japanese territory. Japan has long claimed Dokdo as its own territory, despite the international community agreeing with Seoul that it's South Korea's land. In a 30-page white paper meant for elementary and junior high school students that was posted on Tokyo's Defense Ministry website Monday, Dokdo was labeled as Japan's. Lee Sang-yeol, the Director General for Asia-Pacific Affairs, and Kim Young-gil, minister at the South Korean embassy in Tokyo, protested to Japanese officials, stating Dokdo is clearly Korean territory and Japan should remove the paper. The remains of an iconic independence fighter has finally returned to his homeland from Kazakhstan on Sunday. This comes almost 8 decades after his passing. The late General Hong Beom-do was given a hero's welcome. Our Hong Yu takes us to the scene.
The remains of Korean freedom fighter Hong Beom-do arrived in Seoul on Sunday, the country's Liberation Day, carried by a South Korean aerial tanker. The late general's homeland welcomed him with the highest respect. 6 Air Force fighter jets escorted the aerial tanker once it entered the Korea Air Defense Identification Zone until landing at Seoul Air Base. A guard of honor retrieved the remains of Hong Beom-do from the plane on a lift. They walked down the red carpet as the military band played the song Old Lang Syne, meaning Good Old Days, which was sung as a national anthem by independence fighters. President Moon Jae-in was there to greet the late general by offering incense and paying silent tribute. The repatriation comes 78 years after his death in Kazakhstan. It is timed in connection with a state visit to South Korea by the president of Kazakhstan, Kasim-Jomart Tokayev, on Monday. Hong Beom-do served as general commander of the Korean Independence Army during the Japanese colonial era. The late general is famous for leading freedom fighters to victory against Japanese troops at the Battle of Pongudong in Manchuria, China in 1920. Hong, along with another towering figure, Kim Jia-jin, spearheaded the victory at the Battle of Cheongsanli as well, a battle that took place 4 months after Pongudong. But as the Japanese oppression intensified, General Hong fled to the then Soviet Union and joined Russian military forces. In 1937, under Joseph Stalin's forced migration policy, he was deported to Kazakhstan, where he died at the age of 75. The official mourning period for the late general is from Monday to Tuesday. He will be put to rest at a national cemetery in the central city of Daejeon on Wednesday. Hongyu, Arirang News.
Pre-orders for Samsung's new foldable phones have started today and will run until next Monday. Those who place pre-orders for the Galaxy Z Fold 3 and Galaxy Z Flip 3 can get their new phones as early as next Tuesday, 3 days ahead of the official release. Orders can be made both online and offline, including at Samsung Electronics' online store. In other news, BTS hit single Butter is still going strong in the Billboard Hot 100 chart. It's been almost 2 months since the K-pop boy band's BTS released a digital single, and the song is still listed among the top 10 on Billboard's famed Hot 100 chart. Right now, Butter has slipped down to number 7, but only after safeguarding its place at the top end of the chart for a whopping 11 weeks. Previously, after 9 weeks at number 1, the song set the record for being this year's longest leading hit.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. We start off in Greece, where more wildfires broke out on Monday, with 2 blazes fed by strong winds. The first fire began in the morning in the Kratia region, southeast of Athens, quickly burning through shrubland before heading towards a national park in the Sunian area. However, the mayor of the Navrotiki region, which encompasses the area where the fire broke out, told local media that arson was suspected to be the cause of the fire. Local residents reported seeing someone in a car setting a dumpster on fire in the area before driving away. On the other side of the capital, a second wildfire broke out in the Villia region, triggering an evacuation alert for 7 other villages. Greece has been devastated by hundreds of wildfires this month, with fires coming on the heels of the country's most severe heat wave in decades. Meanwhile, over in Spain, where a record-high temperature was reported over the weekend, the country is now battling massive wildfires, as a fire in Naval Cruz in the Avila province forced over 1,000 people to evacuate. The blaze has continued to spread, burning over 10,000 hectares of land. According to reports, the fire could have been started by a car which burst into flames after breaking down on a road. Over in the U.S., federal safety regulators are investigating at least 11 accidents involving Tesla cars using autopilot or other self-driving features that crashed into emergency vehicles. The accidents under investigation occurred between 2018 and 2021 across 9 different states. Initial investigations noted that the accidents mostly took place at night as the vehicles came upon the scenes of earlier crashes. The National Highway Transportation Safety Administration said 7 of the accidents mentioned resulted in 17 injuries and 1 death. The National Transportation Safety Board had earlier found autopilot partly to blame in a 2018 fatal crash in Florida that killed a Tesla driver. And finally, in Zambia, the country's opposition leader, Hakainde Hichilema, on Monday was declared the winner of last week's highly contested presidential election. Hichilema defeated incumbent President Edgar Lungu by a landslide of more than 1 million votes. President Lungu, despite committing to a smooth transfer of power, repeated his claims that the elections were not free and fair. The president-elect, in his acceptance speech, pledged to be president of all Zambians, whether they voted for him or not.
Those that voted for us and those that did not vote for us, you will be treated equally, equitably, fair. That's important to us.
The long-awaited victory came at Hichilema's 6th attempt at running for the presidency. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Good morning. Rain is in the forecast nationwide today. It has already started to rain in Gyeongsang-do provinces and the east of Gangwon-do province. The rest of the country will also see heavy passing rain during the day, with 10 to 60 millimeters in the forecast during the day. Seoul will receive passing rain from around the mid-afternoon into the evening commute. After the three-day weekend, the new week started with a much fresher and breezier morning. And those of us in the west will have a hot afternoon, while the east will be relatively breezier. So Daegu and Busan will go up to 28 degrees Celsius, while Gwangju will be reaching up to 31 degrees this afternoon with a heat wave advisory remaining in place. We have frequent rain in the forecast for the rest of the week. Then rain over the southern regions on Friday will gradually spread nationwide by the weekend and continue through next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that will do it for us at this hour on Arirang News. We'll be back at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.